Okay, to talk more about what's happening in the global EV market, we are joined by Lauren Fix. Lauren's an automotive expert and editor-in-chief of Car Coach Reports. Lauren, welcome to our program. Thanks very much.
Thanks for having me back.
Okay, let's talk a bit about what we know about BYD's latest offering. I mean, it looks like a pretty good truck. And if you can get 860 kilometers in a hybrid mode, that's going to interest a lot of people.
Absolutely. I think the biggest concern is because of the North American Free Trade Agreement, they're thinking, hey, if we build these cars in Mexico, we don't have to deal with the UAW and their unions. We don't have to deal with building in the United States, but we'll be able to bring these vehicles across the Mexico border into the U.S. and just set up dealer networks, which China could do pretty quick because they seem to move pretty quick at everything they do. The concern is who is it going to impact? It's going to certainly impact the UAW, and it's going to impact jobs here in the U.S. and our economy. And from a protectionist standpoint, President Biden has put up this tariff. Although President Biden may be running for election, so is President Trump, who is saying he's going to put a 300% tariff on. So they're really trying to keep the Chinese vehicles out of the U.S. marketplace, even though they're really kind of already here in a lot of components, and some vehicles are actually owned by Chinese car companies.
You know, Lauren, a couple of things. First, let's talk about the tariffs a bit more and what Wang Yi, foreign minister, had to say leading into you. I don't know if you had a chance to hear, but it was pretty harsh, basically saying that the United States is afraid of competition. And I'm old enough to remember back in the, 60s and 70s, it was always roll up your sleeves, the American U.S. can-do attitude. Does Wang Yi have a point?
Well, he does have a point, but I think who it's going to hurt the most is the Japanese automakers and the Korean automakers who have put a big investment here in the U.S. by opening up plants, building battery plants here. But remember, the one thing that China has over all the car brands is they've pushed this EV initiative, and all of the governments have jumped in on this. Car companies have also jumped in on it, but China owns the bulk of the mines where all these minerals come from. So really, China has the upper hand across the board.
Okay, let's get back to the vehicle, BYD. Why a rollout in Mexico? You talked about it, but couldn't it be possible down the road that a president, whether it's Biden or Trump, throw up more roadblocks at the border to keep these kind of vehicles from crossing from Mexico into the U.S.?
Oh, that absolutely could happen. Obviously, it's a protectionist move. For President Trump, he said he would put a 300% tariff on it, basically saying you can build them anywhere you want, but you're not going to bring those cars here into the U.S. It's hard to believe what President Biden might do. He takes a lot of pressure from different directions. It's possible he might just say that just to say it's 100% tariff and then back down and not do anything and allow them to come in. But he is a big supporter of the UAW, and the UAW also supports him, United Auto Workers. So he would actually be hurting the unions if he did so, and I'm sure the unions would not be happy about this. So there's a lot of give and take for any president who's there. Obviously, you want the jobs to stay in your country. You want the economies to grow in your country. But competition does make you stronger. So that could be very interesting to see what the car companies do. And I think the government needs to get their fingers out of the U.S. automakers' work here in the U.S. and let the free market reign. If consumers want to buy a Chinese car, they can. If they want to buy a domestic car, there's some great product available as well.
Yeah, there really are. Okay, let's talk about the Shark. I want to get your take on it and possibly other Chinese EVs that have been launched in Mexico. What kind of effect is that going to have on U.S.-based competition? You had a really good answer on what it could do to the Japanese, but what about the U.S. automakers?
Well, I'm actually here in Detroit right now. We just drove the Chevy Silverado EV. It has the new Ultium battery on it, which is fast charging. It doesn't have the range of the BYD product, but it does offer a really nice product that's reliable. And there's a dealer network, which is really, really important for consumers. While Tesla may be leading the electric vehicle space here in the U.S., it's important to note that for consumers, if they got a problem, they want to go somewhere. They don't want to make a phone call and wait with Tesla or some of the other brands that are independents. They like to have a dealer network to go for repairs and maintenance and service, but that's not available if it's done online. So I think that if BYD were to come into the U.S., set up dealer networks, I think they would take a big piece of the puzzle to themselves. They'd take certainly a big market share. They've got the Dolphin and some other aquatic named vehicles, but the Shark would actually do pretty well here. And I think you would have sales, especially on the fleet side, because unless there's a government incentive, of course, the government's involved as always. But I think if you let the free market reign, consumers will buy what they want. And it would be nice to see BYD and other brands here so that consumers have choices.
Interesting. You know, I think about the Ford F-150, and that's like, you know, they're always being pitched as the guy's truck, and they have an electric version of that out as well now, so consumers would have that. Now, also coupled with the fact that China's BYD and Tesla, which is American, are looking to build factories in northern Mexico, city of Monterrey. What is the attraction of having plants there? Could they chip away at the Silverado, at the F-150?
Well, they might chip away at some of it. It's good. It's important to note that the Ford F-150 Lightning is sitting on dealer lots. They're not selling at the levels that they thought. Consumers here in North America, or at least in the U.S., it doesn't work for them for electric vehicles. Their lifestyle is different. There is not mass transit available. The charging infrastructure isn't there. And it's even worse in Canada, especially as you head north and the cold weather comes in the northern territories. You can't use an electric vehicle. It'll freeze. And so that's why gas and diesel still have to be together. Last night we spoke with Mark Royce, who is the vice president of General Motors, and he said basically their mindset is they need to coexist, which means electric vehicles, gas and diesel and pickup trucks are the only true solution here in the United States and probably into Canada as well, because it allows people choices. When you put people in a pigeonhole and say you can only buy one type, especially here in North America, that doesn't sell very well.
Okay, quickly, what are the chances of ever seeing a U.S. release for a Chinese EV?
I think it might be possible. It depends on what happens in the election in November. I would think under President Trump, it won't happen, but I think under President Biden, it is likely to happen because he seems to, on one side, say that he's against China. On the other side, he's very giving to China. So he may not be in the same position as President Trump. And I think that, you know, again, there's a lot of factors involved. The government needs to get their fingers out of the auto industry.
Okay. Lauren Fix, good stuff. And thanks for the update on the Silverado as well. We appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.